Just let the sound of my voice be a soft, steady hum now, like the quiet engine of a ship drifting on a calm hyperlane. Breathe in slowly and out slowly, letting all the thoughts of the day slip away like starlight fading into deep void. There is nothing left to do now but to simply rest as we begin a very long, gentle journey into the elegant shadows of a man named Count Dooku. Let the ancient, soothing energy of the Force wash over you, a current that flows through all things, including this story. Close your eyes and imagine a world of quiet nobility, the planet Sereno, where the air itself feels heavy with history and old wealth. Dooku was born there, an infant prince in the opulent halls of House Sereno, one of the galaxy's most ancient and powerful families, a dynasty that had stood for countless centuries. But even as a newborn, the Force, that immense cosmic energy, shimmered around him with an unprecedented, startling brilliance. It was a Force sensitivity so strong that it threatened to overwhelm everything his noble father had built. His father, the Count, looked not with pride, but with a deep, cold disdain at the power that might disrupt his centuries of meticulously planned political marriages and calculated alliances. He could only see the loss of his dynasty, the potential of his house slipping away into the unknown hands of the Jedi Order. It was a choice made in a moment of sharp, aristocratic pride, a quiet but devastating rejection. Within days, the young infant was secretly surrendered to the Jedi, his birthright and his heritage seemingly cast aside forever, like a cloak dropped on a marble floor. His family's cold decision, this quiet surrender, would later spell doom for the very republic they sought to appease. The Sereno nobility viewed this Force sensitivity as a total disruption to their carefully constructed future, a wild, unpredictable element. A Force-sensitive heir meant losing control to the Jedi, an outcome the Count simply could not tolerate. So the records were altered, the memory of the child erased, and House Sereno maintained its grip on its quiet political power. What the Count couldn't possibly know was how profoundly this rejection, this first quiet trauma, would shape the destiny of his son. The Jedi archives recorded Dooku's arrival like any other child, but his presence was anything but ordinary. His connection to the Force was incredibly high, perhaps surpassing even the wise members sitting on the Jedi Council at that very time. Even in those earliest, silent days within the temple walls, destiny seemed to quietly mark young Dooku for greatness, a brilliance that was tinged right from the start with a subtle, sorrowful shadow. The abandonment left a deep, quiet scar that no one in the Jedi Order could truly see or understand. Though raised among the Jedi in the tranquil, detached atmosphere of the temple, Dooku could never fully embrace their teachings about releasing attachment. The knowledge of his noble heritage, the truth of his father's cold rejection, built a permanent, invisible barrier between him and the other younglings. While the other children formed simple, carefree bonds and friendships, Dooku remained apart, nursing a growing, silent sense of superiority. This superiority, he felt, was justified by his very aristocratic bloodline. This early, quiet abandonment planted the first tiny seeds that would later blossom into a profound darkness. The painful truth of his father's choice became a foundational trauma, a quiet, nagging wound that would eventually make him susceptible to the dark side's seductive promises of power and absolute control. In attempting to preserve his noble house's influence, the Count of Sereno had inadvertently set in motion the events that would one day bring the entire galaxy to its knees. Master Yoda himself sensed something utterly extraordinary, a powerful but raw potential in the young Dooku. The ancient Jedi, with his centuries of quiet wisdom, took a personal, profound interest in the boy's training, recognizing a raw ability that surpassed even the Order's highest, most optimistic expectations. Under Yoda's patient, gentle tutelage, Dooku quickly mastered the intricate forms of lightsaber combat and the complex Force techniques with unprecedented, almost casual speed. He displayed a natural, effortless affinity for the Force that impressed even the most seasoned members of the Council. Yet, even as his powers grew and matured, so too did his sense of inherent superiority. Where other Padawans struggled with even the most basic Force techniques, Dooku was already quietly exploring advanced, almost forbidden applications. His natural, stunning talent bred an intellectual arrogance that even Yoda's deep, quiet wisdom couldn't entirely temper. Their training sessions often became subtle, quiet battles of philosophy, with Dooku questioning traditional Jedi teachings and impatiently pushing against the boundaries that had stood for millennia. The relationship between the ancient master and the gifted apprentice grew increasingly complex, fraught with an unspoken tension. Yoda recognized Dooku's utterly exceptional abilities, but he also saw a dangerous, quiet pride taking deep root. The ancient master's attempts to teach him humility, to guide him towards a simpler path, often fell on deaf ears. Dooku viewed these quiet lessons not as attempts to guide his potential, but to restrict it, to box in his immense power. While other Padawans found deep comfort in Yoda's enigmatic, gentle teaching style, Dooku grew frustrated with what he perceived as intentional obscurity, a desire to hide the true, immense power of the Force. Their training bond, though undeniably strong and rooted in mutual respect, was quietly marked by this underlying, constant tension. Dooku's sharp, intellectual approach to the Force clashed profoundly with Yoda's simple, intuitive teachings. Where Yoda spoke of slow patience, of simply listening to the quiet song of the Force, Dooku sought to master it, to forcefully direct it to his will. This fundamental disagreement in philosophy, this quiet intellectual clash, created a widening, profound gap between them. Despite Yoda's very best gentle efforts, he could not prevent his promising student from developing a cold, critical view of traditional Jedi wisdom. This quiet disconnect between master and apprentice would have enormous, far-reaching consequences. Every lesson Dooku quietly rejected, every traditional teaching he silently questioned, created a void, a space where darker, more controlling philosophies could quietly take root. Though neither master nor apprentice realized it at the time, their profound philosophical conflicts were quietly laying the groundwork for a future that would shake the entire galaxy to its very core. Yoda would later reflect on these peaceful-seeming years with a deep, quiet regret, finally recognizing the subtle signs he had missed in his proud and gifted, but ultimately restless student. In the rigid, highly controlled world of Jedi training, Dooku's secret, encrypted correspondence with his sister Genza provided a forbidden, quiet window back to his true heritage. Their relationship, hidden carefully from the watchful, quiet eyes of the Jedi Council, became his only genuine connection to the aristocratic life he might have led. Through encrypted, quiet messages and rare, clandestine meetings, Genza kept her brother informed of Sereno's intricate, quiet politics, their family's secret machinations, and the nobility that had been so coldly denied him. Genza shared Dooku's sharp intellect and subtle political acumen, though not his powerful Force sensitivity. Their exchanges went far beyond simple familial affection, slowly developing into a sophisticated, detailed dialogue about power, governance, and the rapidly deteriorating state of the Galactic Republic. She provided detailed, quiet accounts of how their homeworld's aristocracy viewed the Republic's growing systemic corruption, perspectives that would later profoundly shape Dooku's own political philosophies. These communications directly and quietly contradicted Jedi teachings about abandoning attachment to family. Yet Dooku maintained them, seeing in Genza not just a sister, but an extremely valuable political ally. She became his quiet eyes and ears within Sereno's ancient, complex court, keeping him constantly informed of their father's decisions and the planet's shifting, delicate alliances. This personal intelligence network, built on quiet familial devotion, would prove invaluable when he eventually and quietly claimed his birthright. Their relationship deepened over the years, quietly evolving far beyond simple sibling bonds. Genza's influence helped Dooku maintain his quiet, aristocratic bearing, even within the austere, simple walls of the Jedi Temple. She reminded him constantly, through their secret messages, of his noble heritage, feeding an already growing sense of superiority over his devoted, simple fellow Jedi. Through her, he quietly learned the intricacies of court politics and noble etiquette, sophisticated skills that would serve him all too well in his later public role as the Separatist leader. The emotional impact of this secret connection cannot be understated. While the Jedi taught quiet detachment and simplicity, Genza represented everything the Order wanted him to forget: family, heritage, and raw, worldly power. Their bond became a constant, silent reminder that he was not just another dedicated Jedi, but the rightful heir to one of the galaxy's most prestigious ancient houses. This persistent, quiet connection to his noble roots would eventually help gently, slowly pull him away from the Jedi path and toward a destiny that would quietly, devastatingly reshape the entire galaxy. Dooku's growing, effortless mastery of the Force brought him into increasingly close, quiet contact with the Galactic Senate, where his idealistic, hopeful vision of the Republic began, slowly and tragically, to crumble. In chamber after chamber, he witnessed senators openly accepting glittering bribes, quietly trading votes for personal, private gain, and abandoning their constituent needs for political advantage. The corruption he observed wasn't simply the work of a few loud, corrupt individuals. It was systemic, reaching silently into every single level of Republic governance. What troubled him even more than the corruption itself was the Jedi Order's quiet, almost complacent response to it. The Council, despite their immense wisdom and power, seemed content to simply watch from their high tower as the Republic quietly rotted from within. When Dooku raised his genuine concern, he was met with soft platitudes about patience and the importance of quietly maintaining political stability. The very institution he had served faithfully for decades appeared willfully, tragically blind to the galaxy's rapidly deteriorating state. His quiet frustration grew with each new impossible mission. Dooku began seeing distinct, troubling patterns in how the Senate quietly manipulated the Jedi Order, using them as convenient, expendable peacekeepers while utterly ignoring their counsel on crucial life-or-death matters. The Order's subservience to what he increasingly viewed as a corrupt, collapsing system quietly contradicted everything he believed about the Jedi's true role in the galaxy. In his eyes, they were becoming not guardians of peace and justice, but quiet enforcers for a failing, rotten democracy. The situation came to a profound, quiet head during what was known as the Jidran Crisis. Dooku watched in quiet horror as the Jedi were deceived into becoming unwitting pawns in a planetary governor's vile schemes. The needless bloodshed that followed, sanctioned by the distant Senate and quietly accepted by the Jedi Council, confirmed his worst, most devastating fears about the Order's direction. His detailed reports about the deep-seated corruption and manipulation were simply filed away, marked for future consideration, while the Council maintained its traditional, quiet stance of absolute non-interference. In private, lonely meditation chambers, Dooku began quietly exploring alternative philosophies about the Force and governance. He studied ancient forbidden texts that dared to question the Jedi's traditional quiet relationship with the Republic, finding validation for his deep, growing dissatisfaction. These quiet, lonely meditations would later make him vulnerable and susceptible to Darth Sidious's insidious influence, but at the time, they simply reinforced his firm belief that fundamental, profound change was necessary. The Jedi Order, in his view, needed to either reform the Republic entirely or separate from it completely. The breaking point, the moment when the last thread snapped, came during what should have been a routine peacekeeping mission to the Mid-RM. A group of highly respected Jedi Knights, dispatched based on Senate intelligence that later proved to be deliberately falsified, walked directly into a deadly, horrifying ambush. The mission's true purpose wasn't peacekeeping at all, but eliminating a political rival of an influential, corrupt senator. Those Jedi deaths weren't casualties of service. They were sacrificial pawns in a dark political game. Dooku, investigating the incident quietly and thoroughly, often against the Council's wishes, uncovered a chilling web of corruption that stretched from local officials all the way to the highest, most hallowed levels of the Senate. The evidence was irrefutable, undeniable. Republic officials had knowingly, callously sent Jedi to their deaths for pure political gain. When he presented his devastating findings to the Council, their quiet response was measured, diplomatic, and in Dooku's eyes, utterly and completely inadequate. The Council spoke of working within the system, of quietly maintaining the delicate balance between the Order and the Senate. They advised endless patience, suggesting that time and only time would eventually reveal the proper course of action. For Dooku, this quiet, compromising response represented everything fundamentally wrong with the Order. The Jedi had become so entangled in political machinations that they couldn't even protect their very own members. His formal resignation from the Jedi Order sent shockwaves, quiet but devastating, through the ancient temple. No member of the Jedi Council had left the Order in over a millennium. In his final address to the Council, Dooku spoke quietly of systemic failure of an Order so compromised by political considerations that it had tragically lost sight of its true, noble purpose. His quiet words would prove prophetic, though not in the way anyone at the time expected. The sight of Dooku's empty council seat became a silent, constant reminder of a growing, quiet discontent within the Order. Some younger Jedi secretly sympathized with his quiet, principled position, though few dared to speak openly. His departure marked more than the loss of a great Jedi Master. It quietly signaled the beginning of a schism, a tear that would eventually rip the entire galaxy apart. Dooku's arrival at his ancestral home marked a profound, calculated rebirth. The prodigal son returned not as a humble, detached Jedi, but as the rightful, powerful heir to one of the galaxy's most powerful noble houses. The grand, elegant spires of Sereno's royal palace, which had witnessed his cold, silent childhood abandonment, now welcomed home their new, formidable master. His father, aging and weakened by years of political intrigue, could only watch in quiet resignation as his forgotten heir claimed his birthright. The transition of power was swift, total, and quietly absolute. Dooku's decades of Jedi training had given him not just an elegant mastery of the Force, but a profound, quiet understanding of power that transcended mere political authority. The nobility of Sereno, initially skeptical of this former Jedi in their midst, quickly learned to respect their new count's commanding, quiet presence. His sister Genza's years of quiet groundwork among the aristocracy proved invaluable, smoothing his path to leadership. With the vast, ancient wealth of House Sereno entirely at his disposal, Dooku began transforming his residence into a quiet but highly sophisticated center of political influence. The palace became a silent, elegant gathering place for discontented senators, powerful corporate leaders, and planetary representatives who all shared his dark vision of a galaxy free from Republic corruption. Behind the elegant, glittering facade of diplomatic receptions and cultural gatherings, a new, dark movement was slowly, quietly taking shape. Dooku's position as Count gave him access to resources the Jedi Order never could have imagined. He quickly established private, secure communications networks, quietly funded research into advanced military technology, and began building alliances with immense, powerful corporate interests. His scathing criticism of the Republic, now backed by noble authority and immense wealth, carried a new, terrifying weight in galactic politics. The former Jedi Master cultivated an image that seamlessly blended aristocratic refinement with deep philosophical depth. His public speeches about Republic corruption and the absolute need for reform quietly resonated with populations across the entire galaxy. Few realized that these carefully crafted appearances were quietly laying the groundwork for a movement that would soon shake the very foundations of the Republic itself. Palpatine first quietly approached Dooku in the long, echoing halls of the Senate, where the former Jedi Master had come to once again voice his frustrations and concerns about the Republic's unceasing corruption. Their initial, quiet conversations seemed innocent enough, just two like-minded men sharing a common goal. Palpatine presented himself as a genuinely concerned public servant who shared Dooku's frustrations with bureaucratic stagnation. The Supreme Chancellor spoke with a soft, persuasive voice of reforming the system, of bringing true, absolute justice to a failing, dying democracy. These carefully chosen words resonated deeply with Dooku's own disillusioned worldview. What Dooku tragically failed to recognize was the careful, quiet orchestration behind each meeting. Palpatine had studied his target for years, quietly understanding how Dooku's aristocratic heritage and Jedi training created unique, exploitable vulnerabilities. The Chancellor knew exactly which ideals to champion, which frustrations to quietly validate. He painted a seductive picture of a galaxy that could be reshaped quickly and decisively through strong action, rather than endless, slow Jedi deliberation. Their quiet discussions grew increasingly focused on ancient Force philosophies. Palpatine revealed glimpses of secret Sith knowledge, presenting it as forgotten, powerful wisdom rather than forbidden, evil darkness. He spoke of immense powers beyond Jedi understanding, abilities that could bring true, absolute order to the chaos of the galaxy. Each revelation was carefully measured, like drops of poison, slowly drawing Dooku deeper into Sidious's web while maintaining the illusion of complete free choice. Sereno's vast, ancient libraries became the backdrop for Dooku's first quiet steps toward darkness. Palpatine provided him with ancient Sith texts, presenting them as historical documents utterly worthy of scholarly study. The former Jedi's sharp intellectual curiosity quietly overcame his initial faint reservations. What began as simple academic interest slowly, tragically evolved into practical experimentation with dark side techniques. The sheer, immense power Dooku discovered there only confirmed his growing belief that the Jedi had limited themselves unnecessarily, holding back their true potential. Sidious masterfully exploited Dooku's existing prejudices and quiet frustrations. Every complaint about Jedi complacency was met with chilling examples of Sith action. Every criticism of Republic corruption was paired with dark promises of reform through raw, unyielding strength. The dark side's corrupting influence worked subtly, quietly, transforming Dooku's genuine idealistic desire for reform into an insatiable thirst for dominion, for absolute rule. By the time he finally tragically recognized the manipulation, Dooku was already far too entangled in Sidious's dark, grand design to ever break free. The quiet, sudden death of Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo struck Dooku with an unexpected heavy force. His former apprentice, perhaps the only Jedi who truly understood his growing doubts about the Order, had fallen to a Sith blade. The Council's cold, quiet handling of the entire incident only confirmed Dooku's worst fears about Jedi complacency. They acknowledged the return of the Sith, yet seemed content to react passively rather than act decisively. Qui-Gon's death represented more than a personal, quiet loss. It symbolized everything Dooku had come to despise about the Jedi Order. His apprentice had warned the Council about the growing darkness in the galaxy, had pushed relentlessly against rigid Jedi doctrine, and had died while the Council remained safely, quietly distant on Coruscant. The official investigation felt perfunctory, a formality more concerned with maintaining a false peace than with vigorously pursuing the devastating truth. In his private, quiet quarters on Sereno, Dooku spent long, sleepless hours reviewing the reports from Naboo. Each detail reinforced his conviction that the Jedi Order had failed, not just his apprentice, but the entire galaxy. Qui-Gon's confrontation with Darth Maul proved the Sith had grown incredibly powerful while the Jedi remained willfully blind. The Order's subsequent quiet focus on training young Anakin Skywalker, rather than relentlessly hunting the remaining Sith Lord, seemed to prioritize a vague prophecy over the terrifying present danger. The loss hardened something deep within Dooku's spirit. Qui-Gon had represented hope for quiet reform within the Jedi Order, a potential bridge between traditional quiet wisdom and necessary, immediate change. With his death, Dooku finally lost all faith in the possibility of gradual reform. His conversations with Palpatine took on a new, urgent quietness. If the Sith had evolved so dramatically while the Jedi stagnated, perhaps the ancient enemies of the Order understood something fundamental about power and change that the Jedi had tragically forgotten. The final ritual that transformed Count Dooku into Darth Tyrannus took place in the hidden, silent depths of Coruscant. Sidious had chosen the location with meticulous care, a nexus of dark side energy pulsing beneath the very foundation of the Jedi Temple. The symbolism was not lost on Dooku as he knelt before his new master. High above, the Jedi continued their quiet traditions, utterly unaware that their former council member was embracing everything they stood against. Dooku's acceptance of the Sith mantle came with full, cold awareness. Unlike many dark-side acolytes, he approached his transformation with aristocratic precision, a quiet, calculated decision. The name Tyrannus was chosen to reflect his firm conviction that terror and fear were necessary, indispensable tools for galactic reform. His noble heritage and Jedi training allowed him to maintain a degree of profound, quiet composure, even as the dark side energy forcefully reshaped his connection to the Force itself. Sidious's first quiet commands immediately tested Dooku's commitment. The newly christened Darth Tyrannus was tasked with secretly contacting the Kaminoans to begin the immense covert production of the clone army. This initial chilling assignment immediately revealed the staggering scope of his master's plan, showing how years of quiet preparation had laid the groundwork for the Republic's eventual total transformation. Dooku approached the task with the same diplomatic skill he had shown as a Jedi Master, though now those considerable talents served a darker, more insidious purpose. The final quiet remnants of Dooku's Jedi identity were methodically sealed away. His distinctive, curved lightsaber hilt, once a symbol of his elegant mastery of Form 2, became an instrument of quiet terror. The diplomatic skills honed over decades of Jedi service were repurposed to manipulate and deceive. Even his aristocratic bearing took on new, chilling significance, serving as a perfect mask to conceal the profound darkness that now quietly fueled his every action. Deep within Coruscant's sprawling, grimy industrial district, among the abandoned factories and massive, silent machinery, Dooku's transformation into a true Sith Lord began in earnest. These silent, abandoned spaces provided perfect cover for the dark, rich rituals and intense training sessions that would reshape the former Jedi Master. Darth Sidious chose this location for its strong dark side resonance and its practical, total isolation, ensuring their activities remained utterly hidden from Jedi oversight. Training under Sidious proved starkly different from Yoda's patient, gentle instruction. Where the Jedi taught control and quiet restraint, Sidious demanded Dooku fully embrace passion and unbridled fury. The former Jedi's decades of lightsaber expertise served as a foundation, but Sidious forced him to quietly unlearn many ingrained old habits. Form 2 Makashi remained Dooku's preferred combat style, though now it was infused with dark side aggression rather than Jedi precision. Sidious's instruction focused heavily on forbidden Sith sorcery and ancient dark side techniques. Dooku's natural gift for Force lightning flourished under his new master's guidance. The immense power coursed through him more naturally than any Jedi ability, suggesting an innate affinity for the dark side that had always quietly lurked beneath his aristocratic exterior. These intense sessions often left him physically drained, but spiritually transformed, filled with a new, quiet power. The psychological aspects of Sith training proved equally demanding. Sidious systematically broke down Dooku's remaining Jedi mental barriers, quietly replacing them with Sith philosophy. Hours were spent in silent meditation, focusing on deep pain and cold rage, channeling these turbulent emotions directly into immense power. Dooku's political idealism gradually warped into a firm conviction that only through absolute iron control could the galaxy ever find true order. His master quietly encouraged this evolution, knowing it would serve their greater plans. Special attention was given to meticulously maintaining Dooku's public persona. Unlike many Sith apprentices, he needed to continue operating openly in galactic society. Sidious taught him precise techniques to mask his dark side presence, allowing him to stand before the very Jedi Council without revealing his true dark nature. This deep deception required perfect, quiet control, blending raw Sith power with his natural diplomatic abilities in a unique, elegant synthesis of darkness and sophistication. Dooku's cultivation of corporate allies quietly showcased his mastery of both aristocratic diplomacy and cold Sith manipulation. His first target, the Trade Federation, still nursed deep wounds from their failed blockade of Naboo. Newt Gunray's deep embarrassment and quiet fear proved fertile ground for Dooku's overtures. The Count promised not just protection from public prosecution, but a chance for absolute revenge against a system that had humiliatingly defeated them. The intergalactic banking clan required a more sophisticated, quiet approach. San Hill, chairman of the banking clan, responded purely to cold economic logic. Dooku presented detailed projections showing how a major, protracted conflict would create unprecedented opportunities for profit. Secret, quiet meetings in the financial district of Moonalinst sealed an arrangement that would financially fund the coming, devastating war. The banking clan's immense economic might would become the very backbone of the separatist movement. The Techno-Union fell quietly in line through a combination of technological promises and subtle, veiled threats. Wat Tambor's organization craved access to advanced military designs. Dooku offered them exclusive rights to develop new battle droid models, while quietly reminding them how vulnerable their current trade routes were to sudden disruption. The partnership would revolutionize automated warfare across the entire galaxy. Each corporate alliance quietly strengthened the others. The Trade Federation's shipping capabilities, combined with the banking clan's finances and the techno-union's technology, created a formidable quiet power base. Dooku meticulously orchestrated meetings between corporate leaders, fostering a sense of shared, mutual benefit and quiet, common purpose. These gatherings, often held in the elegant stillness of his palace on Sereno, laid the meticulous groundwork for what would become the Separatist Council. The Commerce Guild and Corporate Alliance soon joined this growing coalition, drawn by the quiet promise of total freedom from Republic regulation. Dooku masterfully played on their grievances, presenting separation from the Republic as a direct path to unlimited quiet profit. Behind closed, silent doors, credits flowed and agreements were signed that would tragically transform these commercial powers into devastating engines of war. Their combined industrial might would soon quietly, violently challenge the Republic's very existence. Dooku's transformation of scattered, quiet dissent into an organized separatist movement demonstrated his political genius. Operating quietly from Sereno, he wove together corporate interests, disgruntled worlds, and idealistic reformers into a cohesive, dangerous opposition force. His status as a former Jedi Master lent immense credibility to his criticism of the Republic, while his noble heritage opened doors among influential systems. The Confederacy of Independent Systems emerged from months of careful, quiet groundwork. Dooku established a shadow government structure before any public announcements. Regional governors were quietly selected, military hierarchies defined, economic frameworks created. This methodical, quiet preparation ensured the Confederacy could function as a legitimate parallel government from its very first day of existence. Strategic planning sessions on Raxus Secundus brought together key planetary leaders. Dooku presented devastating evidence of Republic corruption while offering a seductive vision of genuine independence. His experience with Jedi diplomacy proved invaluable, allowing him to mediate between competing, quiet interests and forge strong, lasting alliances. The promise of overwhelming corporate support and military protection convinced many wavering systems to commit to the cause. The Confederacy's power structure reflected Dooku's aristocratic beliefs. He established a parliament on Raxus to maintain the quiet appearance of democracy, while real, absolute authority remained concentrated in the Separatist Council. This arrangement satisfied both idealistic members who demanded representation and corporate allies who required direct influence. Dooku positioned himself quietly, elegantly, above these competing factions as the head of state. Building the Separatist military consumed massive, quiet resources. Dooku leveraged Trade Federation production facilities and techno-union expertise to create vast, terrifying droid armies. These forces were strategically positioned across Confederate space, ready to defend member worlds or launch massive offensive operations. The military buildup occurred under the quiet guise of legitimate security concerns, though its true immense scale remained hidden from Republic intelligence. The Parliament building on Raxus provided a grand public stage for the Confederacy's formal declaration of existence. Dooku chose this moment carefully, waiting until his coalition had gathered enough strength to withstand the Republic's inevitable violent response. The assembled audience represented thousands of star systems, immense corporate interests, and diverse political movements, all united under the Separatist banner. Dooku's address masterfully blended idealism with calculated, quiet rhetoric. He spoke of Republic corruption not as mere political failure, but as systematic, vile betrayal. His quiet words painted a chilling picture of a government that had totally abandoned its founding principles, serving only wealthy core world interests while tragically ignoring the suffering of the Outer Rim. Each accusation was supported by detailed, devastating evidence, much of it gathered during his quiet years as a Jedi Master. The speech directly, quietly challenged the Jedi Order's role in perpetuating Republic dominance. Dooku described his former colleagues as willing enforcers of a corrupt system, their noble intentions tragically twisted to serve purely political ends. His status as a former council member gave these quiet criticisms particular weight. Many in the audience had witnessed firsthand how the Republic used Jedi intervention to maintain control over distant worlds. Strategic cameras broadcast the quiet address across the entire galaxy, Dooku's commanding presence and eloquent, flowing delivery resonated deeply with populations far beyond Separatist space. His promise of a new political order, free from corruption and bureaucratic paralysis, quietly sparked independence movements on hundreds of worlds. The address transformed the Separatist cause from a fringe movement into a legitimate, formidable alternative to Republic rule. The conclusion of his speech marked the Confederacy's official founding. Dooku signed the Articles of Secession before the assembled delegates, formally withdrawing member systems from Republic authority. This quiet act of defiance, transmitted live across the holonet, served as both a political declaration and a ringing call to arms. The galaxy now faced its greatest crisis since the formation of the Republic itself. Dooku's campaign to sway neutral systems quietly demonstrated his mastery of political manipulation. While the Republic focused on maintaining existing alliances, the Count launched sophisticated, quiet operations targeting unaligned worlds. Each approach was carefully tailored to the target system's specific grievances and ambitions, creating a quiet web of influence that extended far beyond Confederate borders. The Mandalore strategy exemplified his nuanced, quiet approach. Rather than pressuring the traditionally neutral system to join openly, Dooku supported Death Watch's insurgency through hidden, quiet channels. This indirect method allowed him to destabilize a strategic region while quietly maintaining the Confederacy's diplomatic credibility. Similar, quiet operations across the Outer Rim created chaos that undermined Republic authority without requiring direct military intervention. Economic incentives formed the backbone of his neutral system strategy. The banking clan offered favorable trade terms to worlds that maintained neutrality, while the Trade Federation selectively adjusted shipping rates to quietly reward cooperative systems. These economic pressures proved particularly effective in the Mid-Rim, where many worlds depended on trade routes controlled by separatist-aligned corporations. Dooku established elaborate, quiet intelligence networks throughout neutral space. Confederate agents gathered information about local politics while identifying potential allies and pressure points. This intelligence allowed him to anticipate Republic diplomatic initiatives and quietly counter them before they gained traction. Many neutral worlds found themselves caught in a complex, quiet game of leverage and influence, their independence increasingly theoretical. The strategy quietly extended to cultural manipulation as well. Confederate propaganda highlighted how neutral worlds prospered by avoiding Republic entanglements. Dooku sponsored artists and journalists who portrayed neutrality as a principled, noble stance rather than political cowardice. This narrative proved particularly effective on worlds with strong traditions of independence, creating a philosophical framework that justified their quiet refusal to support the Republic. Behind the refined facade of Confederate diplomacy, Dooku orchestrated a quiet, lethal network of assassins, bounty hunters, and mercenaries to shape galactic events. Jango Fett became his most valuable quiet operative, undertaking missions that required both lethal efficiency and complete deniability. The Mandalorian's attempted assassination of Senator Amidala exemplified how Dooku used targeted, quiet violence to advance political goals while maintaining a public veneer of respectability. The criminal underworld proved surprisingly receptive to Confederate overtures. Dooku's aristocratic demeanor belied his willingness to work with organizations like the Pike Syndicate and Black Sun. These quiet alliances provided both intelligence and operational capabilities beyond standard military resources. Criminal networks could apply quiet pressure or eliminate obstacles in ways that could never be traced back to the Separatist leadership. Dooku's masterstroke in shadow diplomacy was his quiet, profound manipulation of the clone army's creation. While publicly denouncing Republic militarization, he secretly guided the Kaminoan cloning program through his agent, Tyrannus. This double game ensured that both sides of the coming conflict would field armies according to Sidious's dark, grand design. The galaxy's fate was being shaped by invisible, quiet hands, with few understanding the true scope of the deception. The deployment of Dark Acolytes added another layer to his shadow operations. Former Jedi like Asajj Ventress carried out missions too sensitive for conventional agents. These Force-sensitive operatives could eliminate targets, gather intelligence, and disrupt Republic operations, all while quietly spreading fear of growing Separatist power. Their actions also served to distract the Jedi Order from investigating deeper, more quiet conspiracies. Special attention was paid to meticulously maintaining plausible deniability. Dooku established multiple layers of intermediaries between himself and his operative network. Orders were transmitted through encrypted channels, payments routed through shell corporations, and evidence systematically eliminated. This careful, quiet compartmentalization ensured that even if individual operations were exposed, they could never be definitively linked to Confederate leadership. As Supreme Commander of the Separatist military, Dooku wielded the largest droid army the galaxy had ever seen. His combat experience as a Jedi Master informed his strategic decisions, while his Sith training provided the ruthless, cold efficiency necessary for total war. From his command center on Raxus, he orchestrated massive military operations across thousands of star systems, demonstrating a tactical brilliance that challenged even the most seasoned Republic generals. General Grievous served as Dooku's brutal military enforcer, transforming strategic directives into battlefield victories. The Count personally oversaw Grievous's training, recognizing that the cyborg general's savage combat style perfectly complemented his own elegant, quiet approach to warfare. Together, they developed the Separatist military hierarchy, with organic commanders controlling vast droid armies through centralized command and control systems. The Separatist military structure reflected Dooku's preference for quiet efficiency over democracy. Corporate armies were integrated into a unified command structure, though major contributors like the Trade Federation maintained some autonomy over their forces. This arrangement balanced military necessity with political reality, quietly keeping powerful corporate allies satisfied while ensuring coordinated military action. Dooku's military strategy emphasized overwhelming force and psychological impact. Massive droid armies would descend on target worlds, their sheer numbers demoralizing defenders before combat even began. He understood that victory required not just defeating Republic forces, but breaking planetary populations' will to resist. This approach proved particularly effective in the Outer Rim, where many worlds quietly surrendered rather than face inevitable destruction. His position as Supreme Commander served yet another purpose within Sidious's grand plan. Every military decision, every battle plan, was designed to prolong the conflict while maintaining its delicate balance. Dooku ensured the war remained costly enough to justify increasing executive power, but never so decisive that either side could achieve total victory. The Confederate military machine existed not to win the war, but to transform the Republic into an empire. The lightsaber form known as Form 2, Makashi, crystallized as a quiet, elegant response to the proliferation of lightsaber-wielding opponents in the galaxy. Dooku's mastery of this exquisite combat form stemmed from his cold, quiet recognition that the wild, aggressive sweeps of Form 1 had become outdated and inefficient. Where other Jedi focused primarily on the brute strength required for deflecting blaster bolts, Dooku perfected the precise footwork and blade control that marked a true Makashi master. The form's emphasis on economy of motion perfectly suited Dooku's temperament. Every strike in Makashi required minimal, elegant energy while achieving maximum lethal effect. Dooku's mastery often manifested in his characteristic one-handed grip, allowing him to execute precise thrusts and quiet parries while maintaining a nobleman's upright, elegant posture. His blade work focused on the subtle strength and flexibility of the wrist rather than the wide, sweeping arm movements common to other forms. Makashi's intense technical demands shaped Dooku's entire approach to combat. The form required perfect, absolute precision in every movement, from the delicate positioning of the feet to the exact angle of the blade. This precision proved devastating against other lightsaber users, as Makashi was specifically designed to quietly create and exploit the smallest, most fleeting openings in an opponent's defense. Dooku's mastery allowed him to turn even defensive moves into potential attacks, making every quiet parry an opportunity for a lethal, swift riposte. In preparing for lightsaber combat, Dooku devoted countless quiet hours to perfecting the form's signature techniques. The precise blade manipulation of Makashi allowed him to control the width and intensity of blade contact, letting him dominate the flow of combat through superior, quiet technique rather than raw, brute strength. This mastery manifested in his ability to maintain a confident, almost casual demeanor during intense duels, his economy of movement making even the most challenging combat appear effortless. The distinctive curve of Dooku's lightsaber hilt emerged from ancient Makashi traditions, designed specifically to facilitate the precise movements and elegant blade work of Form 2. Its unique architecture granted superior control over the blade's angle and positioning, allowing for the minute adjustments essential to Makashi's fencing-like style. The curved design enabled Dooku to execute complex, elegant maneuvers with minimal wrist movement, maximizing his combat effectiveness while maintaining his characteristically refined posture. Dooku crafted his signature weapon with meticulous, quiet attention to ergonomic detail. The hilt's gentle curve perfectly complemented the natural arc of his arm movement, reducing strain during extended, quiet duels. He incorporated electrum and rare alloys into its construction, reflecting both his noble heritage and his status as a master duelist. The internal engineering matched the exterior elegance, with precisely calibrated focusing crystals aligned to produce a blade optimized for the controlled, precise strikes of Makashi. The weapon's distinctive geometry proved particularly effective in blade-to-blade combat. The curved hilt subtly altered the angle of blade contact during quiet parries and riposts, creating unexpected vectors of attack that could bypass conventional defenses. This mechanical advantage, combined with Dooku's masterful technique, allowed him to disarm opponents through subtle manipulations of blade contact, rather than relying on brute force. The unique construction also facilitated the swift, quiet transitions between defensive and offensive positions that characterized high-level Makashi dueling. The curved hilt became synonymous with Dooku's quiet mastery, inspiring similar designs among his dark side acolytes. Even after his tragic fall to the dark side, the aristocratic refinement of his lightsaber stood in stark, quiet contrast to the brutal efficiency typical of Sith weaponry. It is a calming thought that Christopher Lee, the brilliant actor who brought Dooku to life, was one of the few Star Wars actors with legitimate, quiet sword-fighting expertise, having trained in fencing since his early years in the Royal Air Force during World War II. His expertise directly shaped Dooku's graceful, quiet fighting style. Christopher Lee's extensive fencing background profoundly influenced Dooku's combat choreography in the prequel trilogy. The actor's competition experience translated perfectly into Dooku's upright stance, his precise, quiet footwork, and his elegant, economical blade movements. Every duel sequence quietly captured Lee's deep understanding of distance control and timing, core principles that seamlessly became part of Star Wars canon. The integration of classical fencing techniques set Dooku's fighting style apart from other Force users. His stance maintained the traditional fencing principle of presenting the smallest possible target, with his sword arm extended and body turned sideways. This technical foundation appeared prominently in his confrontations on Geonosis, where his measured, quiet retreats and advances demonstrated textbook fencing footwork. Lee's influence extended into the psychological aspects of dueling. Dooku's characteristic combat taunts reflected the quiet mental warfare common in competitive fencing. His ability to maintain a sophisticated conversation while dueling emphasized his complete, quiet mastery over technique, particularly evident during his duel with Yoda, where his aristocratic bearing remained completely unshaken, even when faced with his former master's acrobatic style. Dooku's mastery of Force lightning distinguished him among dark side practitioners, demonstrating a level of control that quietly reflected his Jedi training. Unlike the raw, often uncontrolled bursts employed by other Sith, Dooku's lightning manifestations showed precise modulation in both intensity and duration. This elegant refinement allowed him to use the ability for interrogation and quiet torture without risking immediate death, a chilling technique he employed effectively throughout the Clone Wars. Beyond lightning, Dooku's immense telekinetic prowess reflected decades of Jedi mastery, refined through dark side power. His Force grip demonstrated surgical, quiet precision, allowing him to manipulate multiple objects or opponents simultaneously while maintaining his characteristic composure. During the Battle of Geonosis, he displayed this quiet control by simultaneously engaging in lightsaber combat while manipulating massive stone columns to attack Obi-Wan Kenobi. Dooku developed a unique application of the Force push that reflected his dueling philosophy. Rather than overwhelming opponents with raw, brute power, he employed precisely calibrated telekinetic bursts to disrupt enemy footwork and quietly create openings for his Makashi strikes. This technique proved particularly effective against Jedi opponents whose traditional defense patterns weren't prepared for such subtle, quiet applications of force power. The Count's mastery extended to more esoteric abilities, including the Force choke and various methods of mental domination. Unlike Vader's brutal, obvious applications of the Force choke, Dooku's version emphasized control and quiet precision, often used as much for psychological impact as for physical damage. His talent for mental manipulation manifested in subtle, quiet ways, allowing him to cloud the judgment of even experienced Jedi while maintaining his aristocratic facade. Dooku's relentless pursuit of ancient Sith knowledge transformed Sereno's vast libraries into quiet repositories of forbidden wisdom. The Count meticulously collected texts and holocrons from across the galaxy, focusing particularly on pre-Sith Reformation artifacts that detailed more nuanced applications of dark side power. His noble status and former position as a Jedi Master granted him access to collections and archives typically closed to outsiders, allowing him to amass extensive, quiet knowledge of forgotten Sith techniques. Within his private, secluded study, Dooku spent countless quiet hours translating ancient Sith texts, paying particular attention to manuscripts describing the quiet manipulation of midi-chlorians. These studies went far beyond mere academic interest, as he sought to understand how ancient Sith managed to extend their influence over life itself. His research into these forbidden techniques complemented Darth Plagueis' earlier work, though Dooku focused more on combat applications than his predecessor's quiet experiments with immortality. The Count's investigations extended to artifacts from various dark side traditions beyond the Sith. He studied Night Sister magics, ancient Korriban burial practices, and even collected data about the mysterious force-wielding prophets of the dark side. This comprehensive, scholarly approach to dark side knowledge reflected his academic background, treating different dark side traditions as complementary rather than competing philosophies. Dooku's quiet understanding of ancient Sith alchemy set him apart from other dark side practitioners of his era. While he never fully embraced the physical transformations common to ancient Sith, he understood the principles behind them. The knowledge allowed him to quietly recognize and counter various dark side techniques that might otherwise have surprised him, particularly useful during his encounters with Mother Talzin and her Night Sisters. Dooku's approach to training dark side acolytes quietly reflected his own aristocratic nature and Jedi background. With Asajj Ventress, he established a rigorous training regimen that differed markedly from traditional Sith methods. Rather than relying solely on pain and fear, Dooku emphasized technique and precision, treating dark side power as a tool to be mastered rather than a force to be blindly unleashed. His instruction combined elements of formal Jedi training with Sith philosophy, creating a unique, quiet hybrid approach. In the combat arena of Sereno, Dooku subjected Ventress to intense lightsaber drills that emphasized form over raw aggression. He recognized her natural talent for Jarkai dual-blade combat and quietly refined it with elements of his own Makashi expertise. Unlike traditional Sith training, which often focused on brutally breaking an apprentice's will, Dooku's method sought to channel his students' existing strengths while gradually introducing dark side techniques. The Count's training philosophy extended far beyond physical combat. He taught his acolytes to maintain composure and dignity, even while wielding dark side powers, reflecting his quiet belief that true power lay in control rather than unbridled emotion. This approach sometimes put him at odds with Darth Sidious's more traditional Sith methods, but Dooku quietly maintained that sophisticated application of the dark side would prove more effective than mere brutality. Dooku's instruction included extensive study of political manipulation and strategic thinking. He trained Ventress not only as an assassin, but as a potential leader, quietly teaching her the subtle arts of manipulation and control that had served him so well. This comprehensive approach to training produced dark side adepts who could operate effectively in both shadowy combat and diplomatic circles, though it also sometimes led to tensions with students who expected more traditional Sith instruction. Dooku's exploration of Sith rituals went far beyond theoretical study, delving into ceremonies forgotten since the Old Republic. Within the deep, secure depths of his castle on Sereno, he established chambers specifically designed for dark side rituals, their architecture quietly incorporating ancient Sith geometric principles to enhance force resonance. These spaces served as focal points for ceremonies that expanded his power while maintaining his characteristic control and precision. The Count's ritual expertise focused particularly on ceremonies of mental domination and foresight. Unlike the brute force approach of many dark side practitioners, Dooku refined ancient rituals to require less raw power while achieving greater effect. He adapted old Sith meditation techniques, quietly combining them with his knowledge of Jedi practices to create methods that enhanced his combat precognition without requiring complete dark side immersion. His quiet studies of Sith alchemy led him to rediscover rituals for imbuing objects with dark side energy. While he never fully embraced the physical corruption common to ancient Sith lords, Dooku mastered more subtle applications of these techniques. He could quietly charge artifacts with dark side power while maintaining their ordinary appearance, creating tools that could influence others without revealing their true nature. Dooku's ritual work demonstrated unique refinement in blood magic ceremonies, though he approached them with scholarly detachment rather than savage enthusiasm. He understood the principles behind Sith sacrificial rites, but modified them to require less barbaric implementations. This quiet methodology reflected his belief that the dark side could be wielded with sophistication rather than mere brutality, setting him apart from both ancient Sith traditions and contemporary dark side users. The Battle of Geonosis marked Dooku's first public, terrifying revelation as a Sith Lord, culminating in a legendary duel within the planet's hangar complex. After overseeing the dramatic execution attempt on Kenobi, Skywalker, and Amidala in the Petranaki Arena, Dooku quietly retreated to a private hangar where he would demonstrate the full extent of his combat mastery. The confrontation began with Obi-Wan and Anakin attempting a coordinated assault, a strategy Dooku had anticipated and prepared for extensively. Dooku's mastery of Form 2 Makashi proved devastating against the younger Jedi's aggressive styles. He methodically dismantled their coordination, using precise blade work to quietly separate the two and exploit their individual weaknesses. Against Obi-Wan's defensive Soresu, Dooku employed subtle blade manipulations to create openings, eventually overwhelming him with a precise, devastating strike. Anakin's raw power and use of Form Vive aggression proved equally ineffective against Dooku's economy of movement, leading to the young Jedi's humbling defeat and the tragic loss of his arm. The arrival of Master Yoda forced Dooku to demonstrate his full dark side capabilities. Their confrontation showcased the Count's mastery of Force lightning and telekinesis, though even these proved insufficient against his former master. The duel culminated in Dooku's quiet strategic retreat. Having successfully demonstrated both his power and his tactical wisdom in knowing exactly when to withdraw. This battle served multiple strategic purposes beyond the immediate confrontation. It established Dooku's credentials as a military leader, demonstrated the Confederacy's immense military capabilities, and perhaps most importantly, quietly planted seeds of darkness in young Skywalker through his defeat and maiming. The encounter also revealed the full scope of Dooku's terrifying abilities to the Jedi Council, forcing them to confront the chilling reality that one of their former masters had not only fallen to the dark side, but had achieved significant, terrifying power. The Florum confrontation showcased Dooku's tactical brilliance, even when stripped of conventional advantages. Initially captured alongside Kenobi and Skywalker by Hondo Ohnaka's pirates, Dooku maintained his aristocratic composure throughout the entire ordeal. The pirates' initial success in capturing 3 of the galaxy's most powerful Force users came from their unexpectedly practical, quiet approach, using spiked drinks to incapacitate their targets rather than engaging them directly in combat. During their captivity, Dooku's interactions with his Jedi companions revealed complex layers of their relationship, Despite their adversarial status, he maintained civil discourse with Kenobi, even quietly cooperating when circumstances required it. This forced alliance demonstrated Dooku's pragmatic approach to survival, temporarily setting aside ideological differences while never truly lowering his guard. His refined manners remained impeccably intact, even in captivity, creating a striking contrast with their rugged surroundings. The escape attempt quietly showcased Dooku's combat prowess, even without his lightsaber. When the opportunity arose, he demonstrated mastery of hand-to-hand combat and force techniques that didn't require obvious gestures or movements. His ability to maintain effectiveness while bound proved particularly impressive, using subtle, quiet applications of the Force to overcome obstacles and defenders alike. The Count's escape utilized a combination of physical prowess and Force-enhanced abilities that reminded his captors why he commanded such respect and quiet fear across the galaxy. The aftermath of the Florum incident quietly reinforced Dooku's reputation for both capability and absolute vengeance. Once free, he orchestrated precise retaliation against Onaka's gang, demonstrating why crossing the leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems carried severe, quiet consequences. However, his response also showed calculated restraint, targeting the pirates' operations rather than seeking their complete destruction, proving that even his revenge followed careful strategic consideration. The Zygerian crisis revealed the full measure of Count Dooku's transformation from Jedi Master to Sith Lord. What began as a calculated military alliance with the Zygerian Queen Mirage Sintel evolved into a stark, quiet demonstration of Sith philosophy in action. Dooku viewed the reestablishment of the Zygerian slave empire as more than a simple power play. It represented an opportunity to demonstrate the Republic's weakness and the Jedi's inability to protect the very beings they claimed to serve. Within the opulent, glittering halls of the Zygerian palace, Dooku moved with characteristic aristocratic grace, yet his actions carried a newfound, chilling brutality. When Queen Mirage began showing compassion toward Obi-Wan Kenobi, Dooku saw not just defiance, but a threat to the larger Separatist agenda. His response was swift and merciless. Through the Force, he ended her life, demonstrating to all present that the age of quiet compromise had ended. This execution served multiple purposes. It eliminated a wavering ally, installed a more compliant leader, and sent a clear, terrifying message about the price of defying Separatist interests. The slave processing facility on Kadavo became a testament to Dooku's evolving cold methods. He authorized its construction not merely as a center of slavery, but as a sophisticated tool of psychological warfare. The facility's design specifically targeted Jedi weaknesses, forcing them to witness suffering they could not prevent. Each level of the facility represented a carefully calculated affront to Jedi teachings about compassion and protection of the innocent. Most revealing was Dooku's interaction with Keeper Agras, whom he had personally selected to oversee the facility. Their communications demonstrated Dooku's mastery of manipulation, as he encouraged Agras's sadistic tendencies while maintaining the public appearance of refined leadership. When Republic forces eventually launched their rescue operation, Dooku's orders were explicit: destroy the facility and all slaves, rather than allow them to be freed. The command reflected his complete, quiet abandonment of Jedi principles regarding the sanctity of life. The entire Zygerian campaign demonstrated how thoroughly Dooku had embraced Sith teachings about power and dominion. His actions showed none of the philosophical questioning that had marked his departure from the Jedi Order. Instead, they revealed a man fully committed to the belief that peace through tyranny was preferable to freedom through democracy. The final moments of Count Dooku's life aboard the Invisible Hand crystallized the ultimate truth of Sith philosophy: betrayal was inevitable. As he engaged in combat with Kenobi and Skywalker above Coruscant, Dooku maintained his characteristic poise, his curved lightsaber moving with the practiced precision of Form 2. Yet something had changed in young Skywalker since their last encounter. The boy's power had grown, fueled by an anger that resonated with the dark side itself. When Dooku subdued Kenobi, he expected his duel with Skywalker to follow familiar patterns. Instead, he found himself facing an opponent transformed by rage and determination. The confined spaces of the Invisible Hand's observation deck became a theater for a duel that would reshape the galaxy. Skywalker's aggressive form battered against Dooku's elegant defenses, each exchange revealing the tragic gap between refined technique and raw, unleashed power. The quiet moment of his defeat came not as a failure of skill, but as the culmination of years of manipulation. As Skywalker took his hands and held both lightsabers to his throat, Dooku looked to his master, Chancellor Palpatine, fully expecting the rehearsed rescue. Instead, he saw only cold, quiet satisfaction in Sidious's eyes. In that moment, Dooku understood everything. Every careful plan, every calculated move had led him not to partnership in a new galactic order, but to this, becoming the final sacrifice in Skywalker's journey toward darkness. Palpatine's chilling command to Anakin revealed the full scope of Dooku's miscalculation. He had never been the true apprentice, merely a placeholder until Skywalker could be turned. His aristocratic heritage, his political connections, and even his elegant mastery of the dark side had served only to quietly prepare the way for Sidious's chosen one. As Skywalker's blades crossed and ended his life, Dooku's final thoughts were not of anger or betrayal, but of profound, quiet understanding. He had become the very thing he had once despised, a pawn in another's dark, grand game. The departure and eventual tragic fall of Count Dooku left an unforgettable mark on the Jedi Order, but none felt this loss more profoundly than Grandmaster Yoda. Their relationship had spanned decades, from Dooku's earliest days as a promising initiate to his ascension as one of the Order's most respected masters. For Yoda, Dooku's turn to darkness represented more than the loss of a former student. It embodied a fundamental, quiet challenge to the Jedi's understanding of their own principles. Within the temple meditation chambers, Yoda spent countless quiet hours reflecting on Dooku's transformation. The warning signs had been subtle: intellectual dissatisfaction with Jedi doctrine, growing political activism, and an increasing tendency to quietly question the Council's decisions. Yet Yoda had interpreted these traits as the natural expression of Dooku's sophisticated mind, rather than precursors to his tragic fall. This misreading would profoundly influence Yoda's approach to future challenges, particularly in his careful, quiet handling of Anakin Skywalker's training. Dooku's betrayal prompted a period of deep, quiet introspection within the Jedi Council. The fact that one of their most accomplished masters could not only leave the Order but embrace the Sith path raised uncomfortable questions about Jedi training methods. Yoda began emphasizing the quiet importance of emotional awareness alongside traditional teachings about detachment. The Council's discussions increasingly focused on the delicate balance between allowing independent thought and maintaining absolute dedication to Jedi principles. The impact extended beyond philosophical concerns. Yoda's teaching style evolved, quietly incorporating lessons learned from Dooku's fall. When instructing younglings, he paid closer attention to signs of discontent or quiet questioning of Jedi ways. Rather than dismissing such doubts, Yoda engaged with them directly, helping students navigate their uncertainties while maintaining their connection to the light. This approach reflected a painful wisdom that intellectual brilliance and technical mastery, qualities Dooku had possessed in abundance, needed to be balanced with spiritual, quiet groundedness. The shadow of Dooku's fall became particularly evident in Yoda's quiet interactions with the Jedi archives. The removal of the lost 20 planets from the archive system had borne Dooku's signature, a fact that haunted the Grandmaster. This incident served as a constant, quiet reminder of how a brilliant mind could use its knowledge to subvert rather than serve. In response, Yoda instituted subtle but significant changes to how the Order approached the preservation and sharing of knowledge, always mindful of the delicate balance between wisdom and security. Dooku's critiques of both the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic endure as some of the most incisive analyses of these institutions ever articulated. His arguments, though ultimately twisted by dark side corruption, began from a place of genuine concern and quiet observation. Within the halls of the Jedi Temple, scholars and masters still grapple with the uncomfortable truths he exposed about the Order's relationship with the Republic and its own traditions. The question of Jedi independence from political influence remains particularly relevant. Dooku's assertion that the Order had become too entangled with Senate politics struck at the heart of Jedi identity. His quiet observation that Jedi served as peacekeepers, yet increasingly acted as soldiers for the Republic, highlighted a fundamental contradiction in their role. All these discussions continue to resonate, particularly in examinations of how the Clone Wars ultimately led to the Order's downfall. Dooku's philosophical approach to the Force itself presents an equally compelling subject of study. His journey from Jedi Master to Sith Lord was marked not by sudden corruption, but by a gradual reframing of power and its purpose. His arguments about the nature of the Force challenged traditional Jedi doctrine about the dark side. While the Order taught that the dark side represented a corruption of the natural order, Dooku proposed a more nuanced view, that the Force itself was neutral, and that the Jedi's rigid categorization of light and dark limited their understanding of its true nature. The sophistication of Dooku's thinking appears in his quiet writings on Jedi training methods. His criticism that the Order stifled individual growth through dogmatic adherence to ancient traditions forced many to reconsider established practices. Even those who disagreed with his dark conclusions acknowledged the depth of his quiet analysis. His teachings on lightsaber combat, particularly Form 2, remained studied and respected despite his fall, demonstrating how even a fallen master's wisdom might hold value. Perhaps most intriguing is Dooku's dark vision of governance. His belief that the Republic's democratic processes had become obstacles to effective rule reflected a philosophy that quietly valued order over freedom. While history proved the tragic consequences of this thinking, his initial diagnosis of the Republic's corruption and inefficiency was largely accurate. This creates an ongoing, quiet tension in discussions of his legacy. How could someone be so right about the problems, yet so profoundly wrong about the solutions? Count Dooku's management of his home world, Sereno, revealed the complex intersection of his aristocratic heritage and separatist leadership. The ancient, elegant towers of House Dooku became more than symbols of nobility. They transformed into vital, quiet command centers for the Confederacy. Yet, Dooku maintained Sereno's independence from direct separatist control, ensuring his ancestral world remained a sovereign power rather than merely another member state. Within Sereno's ornate palace halls, Dooku established a careful balance between tradition and military necessity. The planet's considerable wealth, accumulated over generations of aristocratic rule, was strategically channeled into separatist operations. However, he maintained the public appearance of Sereno's neutrality, presenting his world as a diplomatic haven rather than a military stronghold. This quiet deception allowed him to host crucial meetings with potential separatist allies while carefully avoiding Republic scrutiny. Dooku's governance of Sereno demonstrated his talent for resource management. The planet's advanced manufacturing sectors were subtly, quietly retooled to support the war effort without disrupting civilian life. Local industries produced everything from military-grade communications equipment to specialized parts for separatist warships, all under the guise of normal commercial operations. The planet's vast forests provided rare materials for advanced weapons development, while its ancient vaults contained wealth that funded countless covert operations. The Count's relationship with Sereno's other noble houses showcased his political mastery. Rather than brutally demanding their loyalty, he offered them carefully calculated privileges within the new separatist order. Each house received enough benefit to ensure their cooperation, yet never enough power to challenge his authority. Through regular, elegant gatherings at his palace, Dooku maintained the quiet illusion of collective governance while quietly centralizing control under his leadership. This system would later serve as a model for how he envisioned governing the entire Confederacy. The true genius of Dooku's Sereno operations lay in their sustainability. While other separatist worlds strained under the burdens of war, Sereno quietly prospered. Its economy remained stable, its defenses strong, and its population largely supportive of their leaders' galactic ambitions. This success story became a powerful, quiet recruitment tool, showing potential allies that separation from the Republic could lead to prosperity rather than chaos. Beyond the official separatist intelligence apparatus, Count Dooku cultivated a sophisticated, quiet personal network of spies and informants that extended throughout both Republic and Separatist space. This shadow organization operated independently from the Confederacy's regular intelligence services, answering exclusively to Dooku himself. Unlike the more militant separatist spy networks, Dooku's agents were chosen for their subtlety and ability to move undetected through high society. The network's foundation rested on Dooku's extensive connections from his time as a Jedi Master. Former diplomatic contacts, disillusioned Republic officials, and even some members of noble houses were carefully recruited and positioned throughout key systems. These agents were rarely traditional spies. Instead, they were respected members of their communities who shared Dooku's vision of galactic reform or stood to benefit from his promised New Order. Within the Senate itself, Dooku maintained a quiet web of informants that extended beyond mere political allegiance to the separatist cause. These individuals provided valuable intelligence about Republic military movements and political decisions, often without realizing the full scope of their contribution. The Count's aristocratic background proved invaluable here, as he understood how to leverage social obligations and personal favors without arousing suspicion. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Dooku's intelligence network was its quiet integration with high culture. Art dealers, museum curators, and cultural attachés served as perfect covers for his agents. These positions allowed them to travel freely between Republic and Separatist space under the pretext of managing cultural exchanges or acquiring artifacts. The network's communications often utilized sophisticated encryption methods, quietly hidden within legitimate art transactions or cultural documents. The operation's command structure reflected Dooku's preference for personal control. Each cell operated independently, with information flowing through carefully chosen intermediaries before reaching him. This compartmentalization ensured that the capture of one agent couldn't compromise the entire network. Even his master, Darth Sidious, remained unaware of the full extent of this personal intelligence apparatus, a fact that demonstrated Dooku's cold, quiet understanding of the Sith tendency toward betrayal. Count Dooku's cultivation of a sophisticated public image went far beyond mere political necessity. His patronage of the arts served as both a quiet continuation of his aristocratic heritage and a careful tool of influence. The vast collections housed within his Sereno Palace ranged from ancient Force-sensitive artifacts to contemporary masterpieces, each piece selected not only for its artistic merit, but also for the message it conveyed about its owner's refinement and wisdom. His support of artists throughout both Republic and Separatist space maintained an appearance of cultural sophistication, even as war raged across the galaxy. Dooku commissioned works that subtly reinforced his political message, funding artists who portrayed the Republic's decay or celebrated the independence movements of various systems. These pieces found homes in galleries and museums across the galaxy, their political undertones quietly masked by their artistic merit. The Count's personal library became legendary among scholars and collectors. Ancient texts and rare manuscripts filled its shelves, many acquired during his years as a Jedi Master. However, the collection served a deeper purpose than mere scholarly pursuit. Hidden among historical treatises and philosophical works were Sith texts and dark side artifacts, their presence quietly concealed by the sheer volume of legitimate academic materials surrounding them. Dooku's cultural soirees brought together artists, scholars, and potential political allies in an atmosphere of refined intellectual discourse. These gatherings served multiple purposes. They maintained his image as a cultured aristocrat, provided quiet cover for clandestine meetings, and allowed him to assess potential recruits to his cause. The events became known for their stimulating discussions of art, philosophy, and politics, carefully steered to highlight the failings of the Republic system. As war approached its climax, these cultural pursuits took on a final, tragic dimension. Much of Dooku's collection would outlive him, scattered across the galaxy as a quiet testament to a man who balanced ruthless ambition with genuine appreciation for civilization's finest achievements. Throughout his years as both Jedi Master and Sith Lord, Count Dooku established a network of secret facilities that reflected the duality of his nature. These hidden sanctuaries ranged from meditation chambers deep within abandoned temples to fortified compounds on remote worlds. Each location was chosen with characteristic precision, often situated at sites strong with the Force or holding strategic value within ancient hyperspace routes. Within the deep, quiet depths of Sereno's mountain ranges, Dooku constructed his primary sanctuary. This facility combined Sith architecture with advanced security systems, creating a space where he could fully embrace dark side teachings away from prying eyes. The chamber's design incorporated elements from ancient Sith temples, their geometric patterns focusing and amplifying dark side energies. Here, he would spend hours in silent meditation, delving deeper into forbidden knowledge while maintaining the composure that set him apart from other dark side adherents. Dooku's most closely guarded sanctuaries contained vast repositories of both Jedi and Sith knowledge. These archives held information deemed too dangerous for even the Jedi Temple's restricted vaults. In these secret, quiet places, he stored not only ancient holocrons and artifacts, but also detailed contingency plans, private correspondence, and evidence of operations unknown even to his Separatist allies. Each facility was protected by layers of security, from traditional guards to force-based defenses that could be navigated only by those trained in specific techniques. The final sanctuary, never fully completed, lay hidden beneath Raxus Secundus's capital city. This facility was intended to serve as a secure command center from which Dooku could guide the Separatist movement to ultimate victory. Its existence remained unknown to all but a handful of his most trusted agents, its construction disguised as municipal improvements. Like so many of his careful preparations, this sanctuary would remain unfinished, its dark purpose unfulfilled, following his death aboard the Invisible Hand. These hidden retreats stand as quiet testament to Count Dooku's methodical nature and grandiose ambitions, silent monuments to a man who sought to reshape the galaxy through a combination of ancient wisdom and calculated control. Now let the image of the wide, quiet stars in the blackness of space settle softly in your mind. Imagine the gentle, continuous hum of the Force, an energy that flows through all these stories, connecting the light and the dark, the beginning and the end. You are safe, you are warm, and you are drifting now. Drifting further away from the noise of the galaxy and deeper into the quiet comfort of your own sleep. Let the final, soft shadows of Sereno and the ancient silence of the Jedi Temple guard your rest. Breathe in the quiet, breathe out the tension, and let the gentle rhythm of the night carry you away. The story is finished, the conflicts are resolved, and all that remains is the profound, soothing peace of the deep dark. Sleep now, and may the quiet Force be with you.